Welcome back. Today is Monday, June 15th, and we are joined today by Professor Jeffrey Sachs to discuss if, peace could break out in Iran. So thank you for coming on. We see now that, we see that Trump announced that a deal has been reached. Again, one would like to be optimistic, but how do you see this deal? How sustainable is it? Because it implies some painful concessions. I know many people in the US, as well as possibly the majority in Israel, do not want this. So if we add to the fact that the US does not have a great history in terms of implementing these kind of agreements, especially with Iran, how justified is optimism now?
Well, of course, we have to be extremely cautious because the details of what has ostensibly been signed, and now all parties, Iran, the United States, and Pakistani mediators have said that an agreement has been signed. We don't know the details, and it comes in many stages. And from what we do know, and in any event, it could fall apart quite easily. So what do we know? We know that the three sides have said that there will be a ceasefire, and the three sides that have talked about this, I should say, two of the antagonists, the U.S. and Iran, and the third being the mediator, Pakistan. This does not include Israel, so Israel is not a formal party to this agreement as far as we know. The agreement seems to call for an end of hostilities. The phrase that the Pakistani announcement used was a permanent end to hostilities. It ostensibly comes in phases, two broad phases. One is to reopen the Strait of Hormuz and the international oil and gas traffic. And the second phase is about the nuclear issues. It seems, according to the announcements, that the agreement does not include other kinds of demands that the United States had once upon a time put on the table about Iran's missile systems or its support for other groups in the region, such as Hezbollah. So it seems to be a two-stage agreement, one to open the Strait of Hormuz, and second to then negotiate over a period of 60 days the some kind of resolution on the nuclear issue, in which Iran would, in some sense, irrevocably, but not produce or procure through purchase or other way a nuclear weapon, and U.S. and other international sanctions, economic sanctions, would be dropped. So that's the basic framework. Within that, there are many statements, but not so much clarity. How will the Strait of Hormuz be governed going forward? It seems from the Iranian side that Iran says this is not an international waterway. It's a waterway shared by Iran and Oman, and we will have co-responsibility for that. Whether that is somehow inscribed in the agreement or not, we don't know. President Trump said that there would be no tolls charged, and this may be one of the terms of the agreement, because Iran was claiming tolls of $1 a barrel of oil on the ships passing through, and maybe that has been dropped. On the other side, there are statements that the U.S. will unfreeze Iranian assets that are frozen, and a number that is mentioned is $25 billion. Which assets? Why? How? Who? Under what authority did the U.S. freeze these? What is really being counted here is not clear. But there seems to be some kind of arrangement where the physical traffic will open, some kind of nominal or maybe even more substantial than that, Iranian and Omanian control over the strait will continue. And if the rumors are correct, tolls will not be charged on trafficking of oil and gas, but on the other side, the U.S. will unfreeze a significant, let's say, amount of assets that were frozen beforehand. Now, Israel is not part of this agreement, and certainly the Netanyahu government would not agree to one of the crucial terms that's claimed about this agreement, that it covers a cessation of fighting in Lebanon. Exactly what has been agreed regarding Lebanon is also unclear. But if the past is in any way predictive, and of course it should be, Israel may try to undermine or destroy the agreement by continuing the bombing in Lebanon, or finding a pretext, or claiming that Hezbollah shot a drone or a missile into Israel, and now the bombing of Beirut will continue. And all of this is to say that this is extremely fragile. It essentially, at the core, from what we can gather, returns the situation more or less to the situation ex ante before the February 28th attack by Israel and the United States on Iran, with some significant changes perhaps on formal control of the straits, perhaps with some unfreezing of Iranian assets, or perhaps not. Sorry to be so vague, but our main media don't even pretend to tell us what's in the agreement. We have some limited reports from the Iranian media, but other than that, lots of details remain vague. I think there's one overriding truth that we can say, even at this stage: this war accomplished absolutely nothing. It was useless. It was stupid. It was a Mossad operation, principally sold to the United States. It killed a lot of people. It created a lot of harm. It is the result of essentially irresponsible people being in charge in Israel and in the United States. Nothing good came out of this, not an iota of substantive achievement of any value for the U.S. It weakened Israel, to be sure, diplomatically. How many times now has Trump himself called Netanyahu crazy in expletive-filled terms, including, again, yesterday? Israel's image in the world, rightfully so, is in a catastrophic condition, because Israel is truly a rogue state and a murder state incorporated, and it's a disgrace how it behaves. So Israel's the clear loser. The United States has certainly lost any aura of strength and invincibility in all of this. I wouldn't say Iran is the winner, though. It's battered. It has suffered thousands of deaths, tens of billions of dollars of damage. Wars can produce just losers, and this is what this war did. This was a lose-lose war, stupidly launched by Israel and the United States. It accomplished absolutely nothing, and whether it's over, of course, remains to be seen. This is hardly a new day in the Middle East breaking out, as Trump's sycophants have said, but maybe it is a fragile ceasefire that will hold. My inbox is already filled with people saying it will fall to pieces within 48 hours. It's a pretext. It's a ruse. I would not myself go that far to make that conclusion. Both sides, Iran and the United States, have a good reason for the fighting to stop. And so maybe the fighting will stop. Israel never seems to stop fighting, but Israel is in a state of open collapse in terms of the support that it has in the United States and the rest of the world. So maybe this time Israel won't defeat the peace, because maybe what Trump is very visibly saying in public, that you're fucking crazy bastard, to quote the President of the United States. Otherwise, I wouldn't use the language. I'm just quoting from the White House. Maybe that actually reflects the fact that with American politics the way it is, and with an upcoming election, and with Trump's approval ratings in a steep descent, there isn't a mood for Israel to play its typical disastrous games.
Well, you mentioned this vagueness in terms of what the deal would entail. I think that's almost required now, because there's a lot of painful concessions. For example, in the Strait of Hormuz, they say, yes, there won't be a toll, but a toll suggests it's mere cost for entry. But there will be a fee, and it's which would suggest, I guess, operational support. It's not legally, it's not a nothing. It means it entails the navigation assistance, rescue operations, environmental protection, different security issues. So there is a legal distinction between a toll and a fee, but at the end of the day, the fee did not exist before this war, and it will exist after. So for
Exactly.
Trump, it will be a concession. It will be a loss. It's just going to be hard. The way he has talked about this war and the outcome over the past few months, you would think he will meet a lot of opposition once the details start to come out to the front. It would be a minefield.
Yeah, and two kinds of opposition, of course. We have the Zionist lobby, which will openly attack the deal as a concession to the evil regime. And there will be, of course, eventually, if our media ever get around to it, and if there are at least a few politicians that are not pathetic in our country, questioning what the hell just happened. Why did we do this? What kind of absurd war was this, launched single-handedly by the President of the United States, without any public backing, without any congressional backing, without any clear explanation, with the statements at the beginning that the goal was regime change and unconditional surrender, and all of the claims that were made, and none of those was achieved. So in this sense, of course, there deserves to be and will be criticism, but we certainly are not at the end of the Zionist lobby in the United States either.
Yeah. Well, I think people always could lure into these wars because of the way political discourse is now. You notice when they attacked Iran, essentially the logic was, well, if you support it, then you're pro-Israel. If you're not supporting it, then you're pro-Iran. This is how people talk. No one began with the point of departure being, what should we achieve and how can it be achieved? An actual strategy. We do the same with the war against Russia. That is, the language on use. If you support actions, that should signify whether you're for, against, or pro-Russian or pro-NATO. But
Exactly.
at the end of the day, it doesn't mean anything what your position is. If you can't achieve your objectives, and it's very hard to explain why this was a pro-American or pro-Israeli war to begin with. It didn't serve their interest. But
I think a couple more things I would add. First, there are no operative norms against war in the U.S. executive branch, and certainly not in Trump's mind. So the idea that you bomb places, kill people, assassinate people, this is a norm. There's no sense in which any single American official would say, oh, but the UN Charter doesn't allow that. That statement doesn't exist. We are led by gangsters and with a gangster mentality. Do what you can, get away with what you can. Anyone else is a sucker. Don't be stupid. There's no international law. So first, there are no norms against this. There's no moral compunction, legal compunction, need to justify other than victory itself. Then comes the very pragmatic question, well, will this succeed? And I think it's probably the case that Trump was on a drunken high from delusional high, let me say, from Venezuela, in which some kind of inside operation between the CIA and the Venezuelan government agreed to the removal forcibly of the president of the country. It left a regime intact, but it changed the government, and it changed politics in a way, because it was the cover for the U.S. to remove sanctions that had been put on Venezuela beforehand and start shipping Venezuelan oil to the United States. And the Venezuelans were in a rather desperate need of cash. And so they went along with this as well. And I think the Iranian gambit was not aiming to be a war. It was aiming to be a one-day operation. And everything we know about it tells us that story, that there was a plan to install a leader. Trump said as much. Kill the leadership, decapitation, and everything will be all right the next day. So this is also the behavior of very naive, very arrogant people. It does show, to my mind, a complete breakdown of politics in the United States. Our institutions don't work. We don't have institutional review. We don't have a functioning National Security Council, national security apparatus. We certainly don't have a republic in the sense of a constitutional order in which Congress would either declare war or have oversight over the actions of the executive branch or control through the budget. We have none of that. We have a small gangster mentality group running things right now. It didn't work for them. They face some constraints as a result of the failure of this one-day operation. This is essentially trying to find a way out, I think. It's not a surrender. It's not a victory. It shows how useless entirely all of this gangsterism was, and how much it hurts everyone else, us, especially the Iranian people, the 160 schoolgirls killed on the first day of the strike in Minab. It's been a disaster for everybody. The one place where it's not been a disaster is in big tech, which has tried out its weapons, gotten expanded Pentagon contracts for AI systems, made a few mistakes like mass murder of schoolgirls, but that's all in the machine learning process and the systems learning process. Palantir has won. The Israeli stock market has won. So the warmongers, they came out ahead. The world suffered much, much larger losses from a military, strategic, and foreign policy point of view. This was not only useless, it was a loss. The United States lost any claim to protect countries in the Middle East, or to have military dominance, or to have any kind of hegemonic control. One more point, Glenn, that I would add, just as in these early hours of trying to assess this, the Iranians were hurting badly economically. The blockade did hurt them. But more than that, the U.S. has been on an economic war against Iran, and that war has been years underway. Our Treasury Secretary, Scott Bessent, is also very much a gangster mentality, and talked about how economic statecraft had crushed the Iranian economy. And I'm guessing that the Iranians wanted some kind of deal to release some of the assets, which is interesting because what was being released was assets illegally taken by the United States in the first place, but the U.S. was using that as bargaining leverage. I do think that this shows that while the U.S. military might does not have the strategic leverage, neither in Ukraine nor in Iran, and certainly not in East Asia, that Americans might pretend that it does. The U.S. chokehold on international transactions remains not insignificant, I have to say. I think it's a real puzzle to me why the BRICS nations by this point have just not made a full workaround from the U.S. Unilateral economic warfare, because it's illegal and it can be circumvented. But so far, the U.S. continues to deploy its economic warfare with some effect in Venezuela and in Iran.
Well, on the unipolar moment, though, I think what key criticism in the 1990s was that the unipolar moment would unavoidably be temporary because the US would exhaust itself and then it would incentivize adversaries to collectively balance the US. I think now the war against Russia pushed the Russians in closer to China. The war against Iran pushed Iran even closer to Russia and China. So at some point, I think the lessons have to be made that the hegemonic peace does not reflect reality. And when policies do not reflect reality, it has very unfortunate consequences.
Exactly, Glenn. And I think there are two things that people should keep in mind about this. One is that you get balancing. So you push so hard on adversaries, they join forces together, and you turn out not to be as powerful as you think. And the second is the myth of the U.S. technological dominance. This is still a continuing myth, certainly in the U.S. stock market. But the idea that ultimately, and Brzezinski said it very clearly in 1997, and he was suffering from that myth, the U.S. ultimately will triumph because ultimately Western technology is superior, and the other countries will have to face that fact, either on the battlefield or in the economy. And that is, in truth, a core reason for the failure of the unipolar moment. China absolutely competes and in many ways outcompetes the United States technologically on a very, very wide range of activities. But it's more than that. Look at Iran. This is a sophisticated country that can make sophisticated weaponry. And that was completely not understood or felt in Washington. Same with Russia. Technology has spread. Advanced weaponry, digital technologies, AI, these are not the preserve of Elon Musk himself or Palantir or Israel or the United States. These are worldwide technologies, and they have spread to many power centers, and there are a lot of smart people in a lot of places. And so the idea that the ultimate control of the Western hegemon is its technological superiority needs to be put aside. And if it were put aside, there would not only be peace and mutual respect, but a lot more economic gain as well. Because one of the things that I completely reject and I would laugh at, but I find it so tragic, is that the global economy has been taken over by the military strategists who now view trade and finance as strategic weapons rather than as the ways of mutual gain and economic progress. So I want the economists who believe in open trade, finance, and mutual benefit to reclaim these tools from these economic warriors like our Treasury Secretary and others, and our Commerce Secretary and our trade representatives who view everything about the economy in warfare terms.
Thank you for taking the time. Actually, if I can just add one note, I think what you said about the technology is quite important because it shows that these wars don't just signify the end of the post-Cold War hegemonic era, but also centuries of Western technological dominance and, well, you can put it, well, at least international leadership over the past 500 years since the Western maritime powers set out to reconnect the world. So it's, interesting times. So thank you very much again.
Of course, see you.